I'm probably going to run for office again in 2026, so we'll see what happens. But these are my thoughts on why government charity is the least effective way to do charitable work. So the very best way to do charity is direct and personal. That means I have a friend, a family member, a neighbor, coworker who needs help. I have a surplus, money, food, whatever it is that they need, and I give it to them. This is the best way. There's no, if I give them $20, they get $20 and they can use the $20. If I give them, a dozen eggs, they get the dozen eggs, they can use the dozen eggs. There's no waste, there's no middleman, there's no bureaucracy, and on top of that, I get to feel like I'm doing something good. I'm helping my fellow man. I get that warm, fuzzy feeling inside. The person that I am giving said dozen eggs or $20 to feels grateful to me. So they feel like they've been personally looked out for. It's a good feeling when there's people out there that will help you. So this person knows that there's someone out there that cares about them enough to personally help them. So they feel grateful. And underneath all this is that because it's a very personal act, they know that I gave to them out of my own supply, and therefore said person who needs help is much more likely to get their shit together, so to speak. I mean, we all fall on hard times, but when you're receiving personal help from someone you're much more likely to get your shit together so that you don't need to keep going back to the well of your personal friends or family members for help. So that's the very best way to do charity, is directly, person to person, and basically somebody you know. Or, it could just be somebody that you run into on the course of your day and tells you their sob story and you give them $20. I don't know. But yeah, person to person is the best way to do charity. The second best way to do charity is charitable organizations. A lot of these are religious, but they don't necessarily have to be. Take, for example, a church that does a food drive from their parishioners and then has a food pantry where people can come in and take food if they need it and use the food if they need it. So this is a pretty good way of doing charity. It's not quite as personal as the direct method, but it is somewhat personal, because say you are the person that's down on their luck, doesn't have money for groceries that month, goes to the food pantry of their local church, stocks up on food, and takes it home, and they can eat it. So, well, it may not be a direct person-to-person thing because you're basically going to a church or an organization to get said food. You know that the stuff in there was from folks in your neighborhood, in your community, that had a little extra and gave it, and you can feel grateful because you know that you probably see, or at least are around these people on a daily or weekly, they're people from your community. So the person who gets the food still feels somewhat grateful, and the organization itself is local too, so they can feel grateful to maybe the church or whatever organization they got it from. And the people who gave the food know that it's going to help out members in their community and can feel like they're doing a good deed for their community and get, sort of that warm and fuzzy, maybe not as distinct as as if you're directly giving somebody food, but when you donate food to the food pantry, you can feel, a little warm and fuzzy that you're doing something good about making the world a better place, etc. There is only one level of middleman or bureaucracy, so it's rather efficient, and that is the organization of, say, the church or the food pantry, which are often staffed by volunteers. And usually it's only maybe the person that runs the organization or the religious organization that has the actual structure that are taking money from outside sources. But for the most part, those kind of places are staffed or run by volunteers, and there is not a whole lot of waste or inefficiency involved. It starts in the community and ends in the community. It's fairly direct. Now, so the absolute worst way to do charity is through the government. First of all, it's extremely impersonal. So when somebody receives money from the government, you don't care that you are getting the government's money and have no incentive to not receive said money. So, for example, if you are getting, money for a stipend for housing or something, you're getting it from the government. Why would you ever not want to get that from the government? I guess maybe if there's some sort of weird pride thing, but in 2026, ain't none of us that proud. We're struggling to survive out here. So, yeah, that does not enter into it. Basically, you're getting money from an organization that, let's face it, none of us love the government. At the very least, we tolerate it or consider it a necessary evil. And for the most part, in this day and age, most of us actually despise the government. And at least every 4 years, right? Like when it's your guy, maybe you don't despise the government, but every 4 years it's not your guy, and then you despise the government. So you're getting money from an organization that you, at the very least, don't respect. So there's no incentive to ever not take said money and improve your situation so that you don't have to take said money. So the fact that it's the government and how impersonal that it is doesn't give anybody who receives money from the government any motivation to ever not receive that money. Second of all, to get money from the government, they don't know you personally. So it's a matter of paperwork. Therefore, if I fill out the correct paperwork, I can get money from the government. If it's not need-based, so to speak. If I feel like lying, because, why not? I despise the government. If I feel like lying and filling out the correct paperwork, I can get money from the government. Or not even lying, just, fudging a number here or there, or, maybe being not quite as truthful by omission, or not adding something in that I maybe could. I can get money from the government if I do the paperwork right. The other bad thing about that is that a lot of times the people who really are in need might not be able to do the correct paperwork. Because maybe they're not mentally capable, maybe they don't have the time. It's very possible that the people who need it the most cannot fill out the paperwork correctly, because everything with the government involves paperwork. So not only can somebody who doesn't need government assistance get government assistance by completing paperwork correctly, but the very people who probably need it the most don't have access to it because of the wall of paperwork. But the government has to have the paperwork in order to redistribute wealth, because that's what they're doing. Because they can't just do it willy-nilly, and they can't do it personally because it's impersonal, just on the face of it. So there's that whole aspect. Also, it's extremely inefficient, because let's say the government decides to get into the business of feeding the hungry. They have to make a department of feeding the hungry, of course, because you can't just do something. You have to sign a bill, make a law, and then make an organization, make a department, fund the department, hire people to work in the department, because people don't volunteer to work in the government. Once again, this is an organization that most of us tolerate at best and despise at worst, and nobody's going to volunteer to work for the government. Well, nobody I know. So there is all this bureaucracy and a whole department, and not only are you spending lots of money on lawmakers' time to create the government organization, then you're hiring a whole bunch of new government employees and new infrastructure, and just you're creating a whole government bureaucracy to feed the hungry. Now, at the end of the day, do some people that need help get it from the government? Yes. There's no denying that yes, some people who desperately need the help are getting it from the government. However, there's just ways of going about it that are so much better, because nobody feels good. Well, once again, I'm speaking for myself, so I can't say nobody, but there are very few of us who feel good about paying taxes that are going to fund a gigantic government organization, because let's face it, once a government organization is started, usually they do have, they are started to fill a need. But once started, their main goal is to continue and to grow. So the more extra workers they can hire, the more extra funds they can get. They're a government organization. In order to sustain itself and basically give an excuse for its existence, it has to grow every year and demand a bigger budget, demand more employees, therefore proving its importance and making itself necessary, quotes, air quotes there. If I could take my hands off the wheel, there'd be air quotes. To make itself necessary. So you're paying taxes to this government organization now that's getting bigger every year, hiring more employees, getting a bigger budget, that's redistributing food or money or whatever to people who fill out the correct paperwork. And some people are getting helped, some people are mooching, and none of us leave the situation with a warm, fuzzy feeling. I leave the situation minus a lot of tax dollars that I could, if I had them, give to my homie who needs some money, or give to my buddy who needs some food, if I had them. But now I don't. And instead they're going to fund this bureaucracy that maybe helps some people who need it. So, like I said, I'm not arguing that some people who need help don't get it from the government, because some people do. I'm just saying that it is the absolute least efficient, least feel-good, and worst way to do charity.